today's video, I'm going to share with you 10 tips you probably didn't know you could do with the Atem Mini Pro or Extreme. Well, you might know 9 of them, but probably not number 10. So do stay tuned as I share them with you. Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Steph. I run a production house here in Singapore doing photography, videography, live streams, and basically everything tech. Welcome to my channel. Okay, first of all, disclaimer. Before I get down to sharing these 10 tips, I just want to let you know this video is not a tutorial or guide on how to use the Atem Mini Pro. I assume most of you have some experience with using the Atem Mini series and have come here today to see what I've got to offer. So basically, I was just recently brainstorming a little on what kind of Atem Mini videos I could do for the channel. Something different and refreshing from my usual tutorial videos. So I was thinking, why not share some of my personal experiences from years of using the Atem Mini, from the first Atem Mini model to the Pro, to the ISO, and then Extreme, and then of course the HDMI models. So I came up with a list of things that I have learned or discovered along the way from researching, trial and error, and some by accident. Most of you may know 9 of the tips that I'm going to share, but tip 10 was really one that I found out by what I would call the brink of death accident, which I will share my personal story too. But if you know all 10 tips, congratulations, but please don't leave harsh comments like I already know all these tips, this is clickbait, etc. What you may know, some people may not, and we are all here to learn. And if some of you know really cool tips that you think generally users don't, please share them with me in the comments below so I could learn from you guys as well. So without further ado, let's dive right into these 10 tips. Tip number 1. We all know that the Atem Mini Extreme has 8 HDMI ports, right? And we also know how useful 8 ports can be to our production setup. Like they say, the more the merrier, right? But what if you own the older Atem Mini models, for example, the Pro or the ISO, which only has 4 ports? You can actually increase your number of ports with 2 sets of 4 ports Atem Mini consoles. So how do you do that? So with this simple illustration, let's say you have 2 Atem Minis. We'll call it Atem Mini 1 and Atem Mini 2 for simplicity. So Atem Mini 1, the one that you're operating with, has 3 ports connected to 3 cameras, which means that you are left with 1 port, right? So with your Atem Mini 2, connect all the necessary equipment to all 4 ports. And then for the HDMI out, connect this cable to port 4 of your Atem Mini 1. So effectively, now you have 7 ports to use for your Atem Mini Transformers setup. So basically, the theory behind this is you are using Atem Mini 2 as a switcher, while Atem Mini 1 is operating as the main streaming device. The only tricky thing I see is knowing that switching to program view on the Atem Mini 2 does not reflect as the real program mode on your live stream. So you have to switch to program mode on Atem Mini 2 and then also switch to program mode on Atem Mini 1. It's a little bit tricky on the operations at first, but once you get the hang of it, you know how to operate it. For myself, I have the original Atem Mini, and then I bought the ISO model. But when the Extreme came out, I hesitated to purchase it immediately because I was thinking, what am I going to do with 3 Atem Mini consoles, right? But I really love the 8 ports on the Atem Mini Extreme. So for a while, I was using this double 4-port Atem Mini Transformers setup to increase my HDMI ports while I debated on getting the Extreme, which eventually I did. Tip number 2. There are 2 USB-C ports on the Atem Mini Extreme, and you can use either of these ports to record your live streams by connecting it to an external hard disk. But do you know that these 2 ports are hot swappable? Meaning to say, if you connect each USB-C port to an external hard disk, and if recording is full on one hard disk, the Atem Mini console automatically switches to the other hard disk and it continues recording. So effectively, it means that you will never have to worry about the disk space ending on one hard disk and you can no longer continue to record the live stream because it carries over to the other hard disk. But for me in real life, I hardly have this setup because firstly, I have a 1TB hard disk. I use the Samsung T5. Usually my live streams don't last more than 3 to 4 hours, and this is probably just a few gigabytes of disk space. Usually less than 10 gigabytes for a 4-hour recording if I remember correctly. So a good practice that I always do for my pre-live stream check is to make sure I have at least 20 to 30 gig of hard disk before I start any live stream. However, as a safety backup, you can always plug in another hard disk just to be safe. One scenario that I have never faced, and I hope you guys will never face it too. What if hard disk 1 crashes? Not a full recording, but a hard crash. Does it automatically swap to your hard disk too? In theory, I think it would, but I hope we never get to face this situation. Tip number 3, you know for the Atem Mini Extreme, you have 2 HDMI out ports, right? So the default settings is such that both ports have the multi-view output. But HDMI port can be configured using the physical buttons on the console itself. In the past, I never knew about this. I used to think that HDMI port 2 is fixed to the multi-view and you can't change it. But big thanks to you guys who commented and corrected me on one of my previous videos that you can actually change both your HDMI outputs. So I've learned something new. How do you do this? Let me share this with you. Go to your Atem software control panel and click on Outputs. Output 1 refers to HDMI port 1 and output 2 refers to HDMI out port 2. So using the software control panel, you can actually switch the outputs to any view you want. It can be your program view, preview, clean feed, or even from your camera sources directly. Tip number 4, if you want to connect your Atem Mini to your laptop or computer to run your Atem software control panel, there are actually 2 ways which you can do so. One is of course the direct connection using a USB cable from your Atem Mini's USB-C port to your laptop or computer, and then you should be able to see the panel pop up. The other way is to use a LAN cable to connect from the Ethernet port to your laptop, or you can connect the Ethernet cable to your router or wireless network. And once your laptop or computer and your Atem Mini are on the same network, you will be able to see your Atem Mini in your software control panel setup. So what are the real life scenarios that you have to connect your Atem Mini to your laptop using the Ethernet cable method? If you have the older Atem Mini models which has only one USB-C port and you are running video conferencing apps such as Zoom, Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, that port is already taken up and you are using your Atem Mini purely as a switcher. Then you will face this problem. Or if you are using the USB-C port to record your live stream through an external hard disk, or if you are doing both Zoom and recording even though you have 2 USB-C ports on your Extreme, this Ethernet cable method will help you out. Tip number 5. Do you know you can have up to 4 chroma keys for the Atem Mini Extreme models? So basically, chroma keys come in handy if you want to do green screen recording or streaming where the chroma key or upstream key can key out your green screen and replace it with another background. So for the non-extreme models, which are the older models, you only have 1 chroma key, whereas for the extreme model, you can have up to 4 green screen setups with 4 chroma keys. I actually have a video talking about this in detail, so if you are interested to learn more, you can click on the link or you can click up here to get to that video. Tip number 6. You know, usually on our Atem Mini consoles, we have the red and green lit up buttons, right? Those buttons on the console that light up in red and green, which represents the program and preview mode respectively. So red is the program and green is the preview. On your Atem Mini, you can actually deactivate the preview mode, which means you only have the red buttons active. So whatever button you press on the Atem Mini console, it will immediately be the program view, which is the live view that your viewers see. So how do you do this? Go to your Atem software control panel and click on Connection. Then click on Atem Setup. Click on the left console button. Scroll down to the switching mode and you see the option of Program Preview and Cut Bus. Select Cut Bus and click on Save. Now you see on your Atem Mini console, the green preview light is gone. Only the red lights are active. So you may ask me, what is the purpose of this? For myself, I have never enabled this option because I always want to know what is in my preview before it goes live, right? So I can get ready on my preview setup. The only reason I can think of is you are very sure of your setup and your rundown, and you know exactly what you need to switch. So you do not want to waste time getting the buttons to preview, then go to program. But again, it's always good practice to use the preview mode, in my experience, because you never know when you may press a wrong button, and that will affect the view and quality of your live stream, because that goes live immediately. Tip number 7. You can change the brightness of your console buttons. So there are instances in the past where I have streamed in very dark setups or studios. So the default brightness of the buttons are so bright that firstly, they glare my eyes, and secondly, my client could actually see in the corner of the room, my live stream station setup is glowing with ambient light. So how many of you have experienced this before? Well, you can actually change this. You can go to your Atem software control panel and click on Connection, then click on Atem Setup. Click on the left console button and scroll all the way down to button brightness. The default is at 100 and you can swipe the slider down to 1, or you can manually input the number to adjust the brightness. Tip number 8. This tip is about getting the best audio out of your Atem Mini setup. If you have connected your mic 1 or mic 2, which are your aux-in jacks, to the venue's mixer or sound system, or to a lapel mic or to a wireless microphone, you need to make sure that your audio settings are right for each scenario. So go to your Atem software control panel and click on the audio tab. Then click on the little gear button on the bottom left and click on Audio. Then click on General. Under Analog Audio Inputs, you see 3 options here. So if your mic 1 is connected to a microphone or lapel mic, you need to select the microphone option here. The first option with plug-in power is something like phantom power to your audio. So if your microphone or lapel mic is not picking up enough sound, select this option with the plug-in power. If this option is too loud, then you can select the second microphone option with no plug-in power. If your setup is connected to a mixer or sound system, select the line option. Because if you select the microphone option for this, usually you will hear audible static sounds or a buzzing sounds like zzz at the background. Tip number 9. This tip is also about audio. This time we are talking about a preview audio button. So let me give you a real life scenario where this happens and when you need to use the preview audio button. Let's say, for example, you have a typical live stream setup all done and you are in the middle of live streaming. So for myself, mic 1 is usually connected to the microphones and the speaker or MC is talking into the microphone. So in mic 2, I usually have music being played, but the mic 2 button is not live. So that means it's playing in the background. I haven't activated it. So when you go into your Atem software control panel, click on the audio button. Here you can see under mic 1, the volume button is lit up in color with the on button active here, which means mic 1 is active. And you can see mic 2, the volume bar is moving but grayed out, which means that it is not live. So what happens is I need to play the audio right after the speaker or MC finishes talking. But sometimes I'm not sure which audio track, or I want to make sure I'm playing the correct audio track. So right under the mic 2 column, I have an audio preview button here, which I can click on it and hear through my monitoring headphones what audio is playing on that input. But this audio will not be played live. It will only be played locally, which means only I can hear it and the live stream will not hear it. So once I'm sure which audio track is playing next, I can undo the preview audio button and get ready to play that track. Tip number 10. You have made it to the last tip. Congratulations and thank you for watching so far. So this tip, drum roll. Do you know that you can actually make your Atem Mini go wireless? Yes, you can make your Atem Mini and live stream setup totally wireless. So this is how we usually connect our Atem to a power socket, right? Wherever we are. You plug in the power to the console, you turn the power on, and the console powers up. Do you know that your Atem Mini can be powered up by a power bank? So what you need is a power bank that has a 12-volt output. Make sure the cable head connecting to the console is of the same type as your usual power socket. Then connect this cable to your 12-volt power bank and turn it on. Voila! Your Atem Mini console is powered up. So I mean, there could be other power banks that power up, but basically what I want to tell you is that you can actually use a power bank to power up your Atem Mini console. So I'm not sure if it's just 12 volts or less or more, but you can try and error, it will work. So a little personal story on how I found out this trick purely by what I would call a brink of death accident. So I was at this live stream job, and as usual, I arrived about 2 hours beforehand and slowly got everything set up nicely, and I was all ready to go live in about 15 minutes. So at this venue, it was pet friendly, so my client brought his 2 dogs along. Well, you guessed it, my dog ate my homework happened to me. Well, not exactly my homework, but my cable. Yes, the power cable supplying power to my Atem Mini console was bitten off. Luckily, the dogs did not get electrocuted and they were alright, just got a little shock. I love dogs, but I was not alright. Panic mode 100. So I was looking around my bag for anything that I can salvage, but you know, the connection head of this Atem Mini is not the usual USB ports or common ports. But luckily, I usually bring along these large power banks for my live streams that I've mentioned a few times in my previous videos, right? They actually power up my cameras and wireless transmitters so that I can place that camera setup anywhere, make it wireless without the restriction of cables. So in desperation, I saw that it had a 12-volt output and I just unplugged it from one of my wireless camera setups, plug it into the Atem Mini and prayed. Basically, I just prayed, and miraculously the Atem Mini powered up. In fact, in all my years of live streaming, this was probably what I would describe as the greatest David Copperfield impersonation, greatest escape trick of all time. So there you have it. 10 tips you probably don't know or probably knew about the Atem Mini Pro. So how many did you know? If you know all 10, you are the live stream man. Anyway, jokes aside, I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed reminiscing about my years of live streaming and the tips and tricks I picked up along the way. If you know any more personal tips, do share them in the comments below. I would love to hear them. If you enjoyed my content, do give a thumbs up and do subscribe to this channel for more great stuff. in the future. Until the next video, I'm Steph. Happy streaming, take care, and